Hi, excuse the really bad lighting, but I'm waiting for my overhead light to power up, so I've got my desk lamp staring at me. I've been wanting to make this video for a while, but I've never been quite sure how to do it. But as it has been a monumentally crappy year, I kind of thought I should. It's actually Halloween tonight, so I guess the lighting is vaguely appropriate, but I wanted to talk today about my Crohn's disease. I mentioned before in like my very first vlogs and things like that I had Crohn's disease, and it's never really been an issue until the past year. I've had it for 5 years. Well, I've been diagnosed 5 years, and I did get very ill before the diagnosis, but then once diagnosed I was pretty much fine. But this year things went wrong. This year is my gap year. Well, from last September to this August was my gap year, but in late February, early March, my bowel perforated due to my Crohn's disease, and things went quite horrifically wrong from that point on. I was hospitalised for 6 weeks, had to have 3 major bowel surgeries, and was in intensive care for a week and a half. All these things, like, seem like they happened yesterday, and also seem like they never happened, or that they happened to a completely different person. And I guess it also was a lot more horrific from anyone on the outside, because for me, I was in the situation. I was up to my eyeballs in drugs, painkillers, anesthetics, sedatives, antibiotics, you name it. I probably had it at some point. So I was pretty out of it most of the time, and also you never think it's like that bad when you're in it. You never think you're that ill. Like, you just think like, oh, it's not, I'm not that ill, everyone's just overreacting. I mean, until the day I was admitted, I was still going like, it's fine, because it didn't present as a normal bowel perforation. It presented as hip pain. And I say hip pain, that's kind of understating it. It was the most horrific pain I've ever felt in my entire life, but that went on for about a month. And it just shows how long and how bad it was, because by the end of that month I was so in pain. I was doing things, I was getting up, I was walking about. I was bedridden for quite a bit of it. And I had to walk with a stick, which when you're 20, it's great, being bedbound and walking with a stick on your gap year. So I got admitted on the 28th of February. Well, I had an appointment to see my consultant on the 20th of February, and he wanted to admit me. And they thought initially that my appendix had perforated, well, my appendix had exploded, but scans later confirmed that it was actually a bowel perforation with a serious infection and abscess. So I had quite a large amount of antibiotics trying to clear the infection before I had surgery, and I was giving oral antibiotics. I went home with those, and when I was home for the Easter weekend and went back in at 4 o'clock Monday, bank holiday Monday morning, because the pain was a lot worse. My temperature was really high. I was feeling really sick because I couldn't eat, and I was taking all these antibiotics and painkillers on top of an empty stomach, which made me feel even worse. So I went back in via A&E on the Monday, had my surgery booked for the next Tuesday, and that's when I had my first surgery. I was in SAU, surgical assessment unit, for 2 weeks, and then I had my surgery, my initial one, where they did a keyhole, My surgeon was really good, because I was really worried about my stomach not looking nice afterwards. So I had my first surgery and I had 4 incisions, and he also removed a mole I had on my stomach, and he removed my appendix. And I had 4 incisions and then was put in intensive care. 12 hours later, my abdomen started filling with fluid, and I had to be rushed to a CT scan and then rushed back into surgery, in which they added 2 more incisions and drained the fluid and washed out my insides in general. And then I was back in intensive care, and I was there for about a week. And then I was put up onto a surgical ward, Waterhouse in the RUH, and I was up there for a week before my abdomen started filling with fluid again, and I was sent back to surgery, where I ended up having, because initially I had an incision above my belly button, 2 on the sides, and 1 like below my belly, I guess on my panty line, like right below my stomach. And then on the second one they put 1 below the belly button and reopened the 2 on the sides. And then on the third surgery they just connected the 1 above and the 1 below my belly button and reopened the 2 on the side, to put drains in. And because they thought the bowel had ripped apart again, that things were going to get a lot worse, but it was really just my immune system overreacting and flooding the area with fluid. So I went back into surgery and had that done, had 2 drains fitted, and whereas the first time my pain control was done through a central line in my neck, though the third time, I had fentanyl straight into my neck through my central line, and the third time, though I had a central line, they didn't give me fentanyl. They put nerve blockers in my sides, which block the nerves in my stomach, so I shouldn't have felt any pain, which I didn't. However, they don't block the nerves for the area they go into, so they do actually hurt themselves, and one of them leaked. So they weren't very effective. But I guess it was kind of my fault, because I refused to have an epidural, and I just assumed that they would give me fentanyl. But you know what they say, assuming makes an ass out of you and me. So I was then in intensive care for 36 hours, and because it was then my 3rd surgery, they were pretty worried, and I was put on the life-threatening risk. But after 36 hours I was pretty much fine, and I got transferred back up to Waterhouse, and I was there for the remainder of my 6-week stay. After the 3rd surgery, it really did take it out of me a bit more, and I really struggled to come back from that one. Anyone who's ever had surgery or had an anaesthetic or anything like that will understand that it's like you have all your muscles removed. You struggle to sit up. I mean, you can't get off the toilet by yourself. And I remember the first time I got off the toilet by myself after that 3rd operation, I was so proud and so pleased. I posted on Facebook that I lifted myself off the toilet by myself that day with no help, and I was so proud of that, which to anyone who's not been in that situation seems like a bizarre thing, but when you take that first step, and when you do lift yourself off the toilet for this first time, walk to the cafe for this first time, it is miraculous, because there was a point when you thought you'd never be able to do these things again. So after 6 weeks I did come home, and I recuperated at home, and now I'm the wellest I feel I've been in a very long time. But you always live with that fear afterwards, the catastrophe mode, like everything's going to go wrong, like something's going to go wrong and you're going to end up back there, and it's terrifying. Really terrifying. I got out on the 7th of May. I remember the exact date because I got out on the 6th of May, because on the 7th of May there was voting for the general elections, and I wanted to be out in time to vote. So it was the beginning of May, and it's now the end of October. In fact, the very last day in October, and I still got that fear. It's been 5 months, and I'm terrified that something's going to go wrong, that I'm going to end up back there, that I went through all that for nothing. But there's nothing I can do to stop it. I just have to hope and pray that being an atheist, praying becomes quite hard as you don't believe anything's going to happen, but you just have to, there's anyone there to hear it, but you just have to hope that, and just wish that nothing is going to happen. But when you have a chronic disease, it's so unreliable that something's not going to happen, especially with Crohn's disease. Most people don't know anything about Crohn's disease, but it's an inflammatory bowel disease, and they have no idea what causes it. They have no idea why it starts. There's so many theories about it, but just no research gets put into it. And I have adolescent Crohn's disease because I developed it when I was a teenager. But there's also juvenile and babies, one that infants have, and then there's the adult one. But the thing is that there's no care set up for people with adolescent Crohn's disease, because when you have it, if you have adolescent Crohn's disease, you'll most likely be diagnosed when you're still in paediatric services. Then when you hit 18, or 17 in my case, you get bumped into adult services, which is so completely different from anything you will have been having before, that I found really a shock to the system. And then you're putting all this adult management and adult services and stuff like that, when actually, because you have adolescent Crohn's disease, your parents have probably helped massively in your care and have to be there for you, and you will be. For me, my development and puberty were delayed, so I was still the size of a 12-year-old, but 18. I still was the shape of a 12-year-old, but 18. I'm 20 now, and I still get mistook for 16-year-olds. So you end up having all this adult stuff which you are too small for. Really, I should have been having pediatric NG tubes, pediatric cannulas, pediatric masks, and I needed to have the small stuff, but because I'm adult services, you're an adult, you go on this ward, you have these things, which is understandable. However, you cannot treat everyone like that. Everyone is not blanketed to being this size. No one I've ever met who has adolescent Crohn's disease has been a normal size when their Crohn's disease has been bad. When your Crohn's disease is bad, you don't absorb anything, you don't develop properly, you don't grow. My growth, I know, has been stunted by my Crohn's disease. I am 5'2.5", and the half is important purely because I am that short. And my parents, they're 5'9" and 5'10", 5'9" and 5'7". So I am a lot shorter than them. And it's just so not understood, the disease, even by the people that treat you. And it's when you get to the point where your consultant knows less than your parents do about your disease, that you start, it's so difficult. But I've had my Crohn's disease for 5 years, and it is most probably the most difficult thing to live with. I have dyslexia, so I'm quite used to having to battle for everything. But when you have dyslexia and you fight for everything you get, when you have Crohn's disease on top of that, it's just another thing to fight and battle through. And it's absolutely exhausting on the system. And that's how I developed chronic fatigue, on top of everything else. And if you don't have Crohn's disease, it probably sounds like or if you don't know anyone with Crohn's disease, it probably sounds like I'm whinging. But it is, having got it, I probably am like, it's a bit over-exaggerating about how detrimental and horrible it is on my life. Because there are so many more awful things I could have. But I don't, I have this. And it has caused me to delay my life because of it. I had to extend my school education to be able to get A-levels. I've had to delay my uni entry another year, so I'm 3 years behind my peers. It's difficult. It's difficult.